Have you tried diet after diet without finding long-term success? Well, believe it or not, it's not you. So many people think they know what they need to do to get healthy, but there's so much misinformation out there that many of us are sabotaging our health goals without even knowing it. Hi, I'm Carrie, a wife, mom, educator, and certified nutrition coach. After being frustrated by dieting and all the confusion out there about what actually works, I decided to figure it out. And what I discovered on my journey challenged everything I thought I knew about nutrition. And the solution is actually much simpler than you realize. So now, I'm on a mission to disrupt everything you think you know about nutrition too. Welcome to the Diet Disruptors Podcast. Well, hey, Diet Disruptors, Carrie here, and my number one question for you right now, as we've been talking about in our series with Coach Deb, is what's really weighing you down? Coach Deb and I have been working on this series to really help you understand that this is not about if somebody just gives me the meal plan with the magic solution, I'm going to live this happy, skinny life. There's so many layers to what's going on in our inner world, on our body, in this life container that we've been given. And we are taking this podcast series of what's really weighing us down to be able to explore all of those aspects. And so today, Deb couldn't be with me, but I have another person that is going to help us really explore what's really weighing us down, because she figured out, after being a client of mine for 3 years and not really doing much with it, what was really weighing her down. This is what was so interesting. I gave her all the tools, the coach, the plan, the approach, the personalization, and she realized there was something else actually weighing her down before she could get to the place of showing up for herself. So, and the best part about this is Stephanie Rousseau, who is our guest on today's podcast, is also a mindset and habit coach for women, mostly moms, who, and I wrote this down, Stephanie, because I love what you say, how you work with women, where you create a legacy of love by helping women love themselves first. And what I love about what you do is that we all know coaches need coaches. And so you work with us as a coach to try to work through some of these pieces for yourself so that you can be the best coach you can be for your clients. So welcome to What's Really Weighing Us Down. Are you ready to jump into this with us?
I am so ready, Carrie. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I love having a client like you because you recognize how important mindset is. I mean, you coach this every single day with your clients. But what's so funny is we always say, like, LeBron James, who my daughter will argue is the best basketball player in the world, he needs a coach. And it's not necessarily the coach is a better basketball player than him, but he can see the game from a different point of view. And you started working with us really 3 years ago. And knowing that there was a game that you were playing and you needed help from someone who could see it from another point of view. And so what we're going to talk about today is this, I think, unspoken factor in just about every single woman's success that's actually weighing us down, and probably we don't even know it. And it has taken you probably close to 3 years now before you started recognizing just how pivotal a piece of the puzzle this was for your own success. So let's hear a little bit more about what the heck we're talking about here.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I signed on. I think I would love to go back in the calendar and see, like, to the date, how close are we to our first very first call? Because it's right around here. 3 years ago. And I had been working with a mindset coach, and I was on this journey, and I was like, oh, I'm so primed for this. I'm so ready. I had been at that time getting certified as a coach, learning a lot about what we call like this unhealthy striving mindset, which is perfectionism, all or nothing thinking and comparison, and antidotes to that. I was I quote knew all these things, and I knew a lot, and I had grown a lot too as a person
Yeah. Yeah.
during that
So you were
time. And
ready. You were ready.
I was ready. And I still look back and say, like, no, that was the right decision at that time for
Mhm.
sure. Even though, as you'll hear, we'll kind of unravel the story as we go through these different pieces throughout this podcast. But when I started, what I didn't know until, like you said recently, probably in the last 6 months, I would say it's kind of clicked for me. What was weighing me down was this lack of like true self-compassion and this unhealthy striving mindset that I could tell you all about. I think actually that was our last podcast. I could tell you all about it, how it's destructive, how it helps you actually not achieve your goals, like perfectionism and all or nothing thinking. I was really rooted in that still, and I didn't know. So when I signed up in August,
But you could
my mom,
teach it.
I could teach it. I could teach it,
You
but
couldn't live it.
was so different for me, and it was just there was like a block there that I think I'm really like have unblocked now and like opened this whole new world for myself in a lot of ways, like in
Mhm.
addition to my own wellness, but as a parent, as a coach myself, as a business owner, as a friend, all the things. So it
Mhm.
goes so far beyond like, just like this one scope. But
Well,
what's
you know what
important,
you're making me think of? Sorry to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
let's talk about the concept of being able to fly your own plane. We talk about this all the time. For so long, we have been our body is a plane, and we have been the passenger, and just allowing someone else to we're basically fly it. Like we listen to random people, we do things that our friends are doing, and we keep wondering why we keep landing in the wrong place. And I keep
Mhm.
saying that the flight manual isn't enough. Like you had the manual of all
Oh,
the things you should be thinking about, but until
mhm.
you were in the cockpit flying it and getting hit with turbulence, that you throw that flight manual out the window and you actually see what's really there. And I think
Yeah.
that's sort of what happened to you.
That I would say that's exactly what happened. Like you have to like look under the hood. I don't know if you really do that on a plane, but you really like I had to like get under the hood and like play with stuff and like mess it up a little and figure out like what wasn't working. So
Yeah, because you couldn't figure it out. Like you were flying,
yeah.
but you were just like, there's something not like equating here with me actually doing this in a way that's truly authentic to what I know I need to do.
Right. And it was like, what, like, it's very easy to say, like, well, this just isn't for me. Like, I'm sure you've heard that over the years, like a
I'm
couple
like,
times.
yeah, except this is speaking what everybody needs, like blood sugar stabilization, tapping
Right.
into your thinking, managing your time, understanding all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do need it.
Right. But that's so easy to say, like, oh, well, this isn't the right program for me. Even though, like, I think to whittle what you do down to a program is not even like accurate because it's really like a
Mhm.
life, I don't know, transformation. But anyway, I digress. So if I signed up and I was still rooted in this thinking, although I didn't really want to admit it. And then my mom she had been sick, but she went into hospice care. And so around a month later, or so month, 6 weeks later. And I thought at the time, like, okay, I'll keep doing because I know how much better I feel. And I need to feel
Right.
really good if I'm going to, oh, did she? Yeah, she did go into hospice then. So,
Yeah, it was very shortly after you had signed on to work
but
with us.
it was like
Yeah.
probably a month. It was like right after the 4 weeks to wellness.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was like, this is like and I had just started a new job. I mean, in
Yeah.
retrospect, that's a lot of change at one time, but um, live and learn. So I was like, I told my coach I was working with at the time, like, I need to pause this because like, can I just come back to it when I don't know, she passes away or like something like I can't do all these things. And what I didn't know was that like that wasn't actually the most self-compassionate response. And but what was weighing me down at that time was like I have this mindset of I can't do it perfectly because I'm traveling between states and I'm COVID testing because I'm in a school and it's chaos. And I was overwhelmed is really what it was. But I was
Mhm.
also like, I can't do it perfectly. So if I can't
I'm
like
not gonna
quote
do it.
stick to it, whatever that means, then I'm just not going to do it because,
Yeah.
why bother? I'll just pause it and get back to when I can do it perfectly because, life will have no other interruptions after this.
No, never.
Oh,
Whenever
never.
I say that, like, there is no perfect time, I mean
Mhm.
it. There's no perfect time, and life might seem chaotic at one given moment or another. But gosh, like 3 years have gone by, and it's like before we started recording, we are like, has it really been 3 years? It's amazing how fast it can go, right?
It,
So, like,
it, yeah.
okay,
Uh,
so let
so,
so you you're saying something
Mhm.
here around self-compassion. You're saying that a few different times. What
Mhm.
makes you say you didn't have self-compassion? Because in all reality, when you were going through this, you were like, I need to do what's best for me right now. So it
Mhm.
sounded like self-compassion.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I was like, you need to do this to be able to take control of the things that are out of control. But, you really felt like you needed to do this for you at that moment.
yeah, for
But it
sure.
was clouded actually, like, right? Like that thinking was actually a rationale for something else. And you're saying that you think that it was a rationale for knowing that you needed to be perfect.
Exactly. Because I
Mhm.
thought, like I couldn't add to my plate checking in with a coach anymore. I couldn't add to my plate, like, getting involved in any of the other like amazing facets you have to this program. And so it was like, well, I don't know, maybe I don't think I was thinking this, but like I had invested all of this money and like I
Mhm.
wanted to, make the most of it, even though it's lifetime access. So that was flawed thinking anyway. But
Mhm.
still, I was like, I did think I was doing the most compassionate thing for myself instead of thinking, what could this look like in my circumstances? Like,
Mm.
can't look like what it's been looking like because that, on top of everything else, logistically is like too much. And
Yep.
also, like, I can offer myself a little more grace while also knowing how I need to take care of myself to be my best through this time or just frankly like survive this time intact because it was
Yeah.
a lot, the timing of everything with the pandemic. And so while I did think I was doing the best thing for myself, I was thinking of it like if I can't be like 2 feet in all the way in the water in the deep end, then I better just row ashore and stay here and do my thing over here instead of saying like, well, maybe could I just wade in the waters and like kind of like keep swimming
1%.
ask my yeah exactly ask my coach can you check in with me every other week just like
Mhm.
quickly. I'm not gonna like record my food, I'm not gonna like do all of that, but like I got the principles, I got the main thing, I know how good I feel. And like a check-in every so often just to like tell me you're still making sure I'm
Thinking about it.
doing
Yep.
okay would
Yep.
be great. So I was just like, I was really just dichotomous in my thinking, like I have to be
Mhm.
all in, or I just can't do it at all.
Well, I think
So
there's so many of us that are that way because I ask a lot of women, right? Right? Do you look at food as good or bad? Do you look at it as healthy or unhealthy? And most say yes. So this kind of dichotomy as what you're talking about, like I'm either doing it or I'm not doing it. I'm either on a diet or I'm off a diet. That's
mhm.
been our thinking for so long. And as ready as you were, it's really hard to get out of that. I call it dieting PTSD because in no formula that you've ever lived can you do a lifestyle where you're taking quote unquote care of yourself and have all the things of life. Every diet is only when life is perfect.
Sure.
And I feel like that's been ingrained in us in so long. So what was the impact of you, deciding, okay, I need to take a step back and not do this right now instead of, doing it in some way. What are you saying was the impact of that decision?
So I think at that, like initially, I did just kind of keep going with as far as like the nutritional piece and moving my body. Like I kept doing those things for a little bit of time. And
Mm-hmm.
then it kind of just fell apart. And then someone said to me, like, what about self-compassion? Just if you want chocolate cake for dinner, just have chocolate cake for dinner. And so I was like, it's actually my mindset coach, which like big picture, like, if
You
you do
get
that
what she was
once,
saying. Yeah.
what she was saying, but I was like, oh yeah, that's self-compassion. Like having what you want to soothe yourself, that equals self-compassion. Like I didn't really have a deep understanding of it. And to be honest, Carrie, I'm still evolving my understanding, but it is so much further along and I feel it inside me. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
before I could like tell you about it and educate you a bit about it, but like I didn't internalize it in the same way. So
Mm-hmm.
I stuck with it for a little while and then it was like, oh, chocolate cake for I mean, I don't think I actually ever chocolate cake for dinner, but like it was just kind of this little bit of like, well, you're going through a lot. So
Yeah,
whatever.
I deserve it. And
Yeah.
so the concept of self-compassion, how you're defining it now has evolved from when 3 years ago you thought you were being self-compassionate by saying, I just can't take on one more thing. But what you're realizing is that you were just so focused on it's all or nothing, it's this dichotomy. And self-compassion is soothing yourself in the moment. So
Mhm.
as you've explored this and really dug in now, and I love that you're on this journey and continuing to see this, in the more and more we reflect and evolve, it's like the clearer it gets. What is self-compassion? As
Yes.
you're now really defining this, really what is it? Because I think this is what's weighing us down. If we're having a bad day, it's like I self soothe with wine, with chocolate cake, with all of these things. And
Mhm.
your argument now is like, wait a minute, a big realization is that's not actually self compassion. What
Yeah.
is it?
Right. So it has three core components, but it also has two sides to it. So I want to
Okay.
talk about both of those things because they're really foundational to understand. And this is where my understanding came together. And I mixed it in with the disruptive nutrition magic. And I was like, uh-huh. So the three components of self-compassion. So first of all, just at a basic level, people may or may not understand what it is. So it involves like treating yourself with the same kindness, same understanding as you would a close friend. You're not going to berate a close friend if they just to keep coming back. I don't want to demonize chocolate cake, by the way, everyone. I
No,
love
I would agree. Find something else.
good stuff, but you're not going to berate your friend for eating a whole pizza if they're like, oh, I had a whole pizza last night. I feel like such garbage about myself. I'm the worst, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be like, oh yeah. Like, what
You
were you
are.
thinking? You're not gonna go out, you're gonna say something different, like, well, today's a new day. What are you gonna have for breakfast? Like, let's make a different choice of breakfast and move right along. You're not going to do that to a friend. So but we find it so easy to do to ourselves. So it's just
Mhm.
keeping that mindset that you want to treat yourself the same way you would treat your children, your good friends, your partner, whatever it is. And there are three components to this. And this is all, by the way, I have to give credit where credit's due to Kristen Neff, who is like the godmother of self-compassion. I have learned much of this from her. But the three components are self-kindness, which is kind of what we just talked about. So like being warm towards yourself during difficult times. So that's
Mhm.
kind of how I was thinking of this, right? It's like, oh, I'm being kind to myself during this difficult time where my mom is like basically dying. It's also common humanity is the second piece. So realizing that I hate to tell you, but you're not that special, meaning that like everyone suffers sometimes and has
Mhm.
shortcomings. Everyone. And realizing that is so freeing and can really take that pressure off of like, I am the
Mhm.
only one to screw this up in this way, or I am
Yep.
the only one who feels the way I'm the only one whose mom is in hospice and lives
Right.
in a state and, whatever. So that common humanity is a really like key piece as well. And then
I
finally,
love that. But let me just share, because I've worked with so many women over these last 10 plus years. I can see it so clearly. I'm like, I get that you're busy, but you're not busier than anybody else. Like, you just aren't. And there are some women that are so incredibly, like, they're in so much quote unquote turmoil and they're still showing up. So, like, you can too. But I have that perspective.
right.
And there's no way you could have that perspective of my perspective, but having that as a norm in your life, like,
Mhm.
yes, I am unique. I am like perfectly made. I have a purpose on this
Of
earth, but
course.
also
Yes.
like, my problems are any bigger than other people's out there, and they're figuring it out.
Right. Exactly. And we're
Mhm.
all like you're not alone in your suffering, because everybody's suffering in some, small way.
Everybody's got something.
Everyone's got something.
Yeah.
And the third piece is mindfulness, which is just like being aware, of course, of your thoughts, of your feelings, and without totally judging them, and not like over identifying with them and making them like be more weighty than they need to be. So being mindful, like paying attention. And I mean, I know there's a lot around like mindful eating as well, and just like paying attention to what you're doing and how
Hmm.
it's making you feel. So those are like the three pieces of self-compassion.
Yeah.
And
So when you talk about that mindfulness piece, I often think about the strategy. You're absolutely right. Like, I love how there's certain pieces, like you were saying, I could throw this into the disruptive nutrition magic, and it's like incredible how it all kind of comes together. But you're articulating this so clearly, where there's that kindness, right? And then there's that like common, like, I got to just realize that other people are going through stuff too, and they're doing it. But that mindfulness is like, when I say, like, I don't feel like working out today. I just don't feel like working out today. But being aware of that. And also
yeah,
like vision casting, how am I going to feel in an hour from now after I have worked out? Because like if I'm not aware of that, I'm just going to subconsciously just go with how I feel, as
yeah,
opposed to being mindful of what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, but also how I'm going to feel in an hour from now if I do or I don't show up. And,
yes.
you know, I don't want to show up. I'm tired, but I know this is better for me. So I love that.
Right. And really asking yourself, like, what, and we were talking about this a little earlier, but like, what do I need right now? And what you
Mm.
need versus what you want. Like, I may just want to actually sit on the couch and sip my coffee. Like, that's what I really want. Like, I really want to do that. But what I need right now is to, like, I'm in the workout clothes. I might as well just, like, this is what I need. This is what I do every morning. I know how I'm going to feel when I'm done, and I'm just going to go do it. And like, what do I need? That's a huge self.
Oh, so if sitting on the couch with your coffee saying this is what I want to do
Mhm.
is a definition of self-compassion in some way, right?
Yeah, it could
But
be. Yes.
actually recognizing that I got to do what I need to do, not necessarily what I want to do, that is a different level of self-compassion, is what I'm
Yes.
hearing.
Yes. So this is a different type. So let's say, and I'll fold this in with, let's say you wake up one morning and like your typical routine is like, I don't know, you have your half a bar and you have your, a half a cup of coffee and you work out, like whatever. Let's say that's it.
Basically my routine, yes.
There you go. But let's say you wake up one morning and you've got like a really sore throat and you're just like fatigued. Like really, your body is like really fatigued for whatever reason. Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah,
What you need right that morning, maybe it's not the coffee on the couch, maybe it's a cup of tea on the couch, and you do need to actually rest. That's
yeah,
self-compassion. You're not just like taking it easy and being lazy. You're saying like, no, my body's actually at this moment, this morning needs this. On another morning, you might wake up just like, ugh, you're not feeling your best.
you're
You
just
don't
not feeling it.
feel like, but you're fine. Your body can handle it. So that's when you need to bring in this other side of self-compassion that I don't think is talked about enough, and that I've only recently like evolved my understanding of, and that is fierce self-compassion. So Kristen Neff talks about these two sides, and she talks about as the yin and the yang, and you really need both to have a full like self-compassion practice or mindset.
I
And so
love that.
the tender piece is what we just kind of have been talking about a bit, but the
Hmm.
fierce self-compassion is recognizing that, like, yes, if you truly care about yourself, you can fully accept yourself as you are right now, but not accept all of your behaviors, especially ones that are actually causing you harm in some way. It doesn't have to be
Wow.
death harm. Could be like eating these Cheetos right now is going to like harm my energy levels at the most basic level. It's going to harm a lot of
Hmm.
other things too, like if you keep doing that. But part of caring for yourself is taking active steps to change.
Hmm.
That is that fierce self-compassion. So I was use this example earlier, like Kristen Neff calls it the mama bear energy. So if your kids are, for example, like my kids, sometimes the TV is like, it's just hard for them to turn off. And I'm like, okay, let's
Hmm.
like, it's been, however long it's been, let's go, let's turn off the TV. I'm not going to be like, oh, I know you feel like sitting on the couch for another 2 hours. So go for it. Just let's be kind to ourselves. Like, no, it's the fierce mama bear energy. Like, turn off the TV. We're going to get going with the day, or you're going to move on to some, creative project. You're going to go outside or whatever the thing is. So it's not just like allowing, it's accepting that them, but it's not accepting the behavior. So it's like
I
accepting
love that.
yourself, not
So
accepting the
it's
behavior.
almost like being that fierce mama bear for yourself 3 years ago would have looked like, Stephanie, I get it. You got a lot going on. You're not the only
Mhm.
one that's got a lot going on. And imagine if you can figure out how to show up for yourself now in this part of your life, how you're going to be able to do it no matter what life throws at you. And isn't it better to do it with support right now than to eventually go and do it on your own later when you feel like you can be perfect? Right. And like, if you could have said that to yourself, you might have showed
Mhm.
up differently. And you might be in a different space today than you are now. Not that everything is a guilt, no guilt, just data, is
Sure.
really like that level of understanding and is self-compassion.
100%, Carrie. 100.
Amazing.
And
I
and
love
I
it.
think if I had that fierce mama bear energy too, of like, well, combined with like, you can still stick with this and do it and like serve yourself in this way. And it doesn't have to be, 7 days a week, 5 meals a day.
Right.
If you could
Right.
do this like more often than not, like,
Yeah.
right, if I had some sort of middle ground thinking for myself in that time of like, if you could do this more often than not, you'll still be better off.
Right.
Like,
Right.
how,
Isn't it better than doing nothing? It's totally true. Okay. So when you think about these core components of self-compassion, what do you think is something that people just are not really realizing as they look at it on themselves? Like, so to your point about, having a coach, or what we were even talking about, a coach having a coach is so important in so many ways. But like, a lot of people listening maybe don't have a coach. They're not working with us or with you or with somebody else that's helping them see the game from another point of view. And so, if what are some people either not realizing about what they're doing or just not realizing in general around self-compassion that they need to start looking at?
yeah, one is just those two sides to it, the fierce
Mm-hmm.
and the tender. Like, and and by the way, like, it's worth mentioning, I think, that the research shows like the more self-compassionate you are, the more likely you are to reach your goals, actually. So where this is where I
And
want
a
to get.
balance, you think? Like, because if self-compassionate can be that tender, but self-compassionate can also be that fierce,
Mhm.
like, how do you know that balance?
I think a lot of it comes down to like, well, number one, keeping that. So the question that what I love to start off with when I work with clients is, how do you want to feel? And let's have that
Mm-hmm.
be sort of the lighthouse that helps guide us towards where we want to go. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want to feel, say you're talking about your health or your wellness or whatever, you want to feel energized, you want to feel excited, you want to feel whatever you want to feel. Like, if you want to feel
Accomplished.
energized, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Accomplished, even.
accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to feel those ways, what are the decisions you need to make? Like, to get there. And it can
Mm-hmm.
be micro decisions. It doesn't have to be like this big mapped out, all like many week plan. It can just be like day
Yeah.
by day. Asking yourself that question, what do I need right now? Like, and really be honest about the answer. Like, I found myself in the pantry the other day, I was telling you, and I was like, what do I snapped my head. I was like, what am I doing in here? Like, literally, why did I even just open that door? And I was like, okay, you're tired right now. Like, for me in that moment, I was tired. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you just like go lay on the couch for 10 minutes instead of reaching for God knows what? You're not even actually hungry. You just
Yep.
like opened it out of habit or whatever reason. I'm looking to cover up that feeling of being tired instead of just giving into the being tired and taking care of that. I was taking care of the wrong thing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that piece of what you were talking about with intentionality and mindfulness is
Mm-hmm.
where it all comes in. That self-awareness is so key because otherwise you'll mindlessly go grab whatever it is, and it didn't soothe you, and it also makes you feel like crap at the same time.
Right. It's just like just not a good use of anything really. So I think like there are some myths around self-compassion that I
Okay.
definitely bought into for a really long time. And one is that self-compassion is like self-pity. Like
Mm,
that's a real myth that I think people get caught up in. Like it's going to make me, well, this is kind of leads to another one, but like, it's just me feeling sorry for myself or it's me
hmm.
going too easy on myself. So it's really about recognizing like suffering without being overwhelmed and like wallowing in my problems. So
Yep.
it's not self-pity, it's just like the recognition of what's happening and giving yourself like that um assurance or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
And another one is that it's selfish, which I hope by now we're really getting the message that self-compassion, self-love, self-anything is not actually selfish.
I mean,
Because
I'm trying to send that message,
you're
Steph,
trying.
but
Let's just keep beating that
it's
drum.
hard.
Keep
Yep.
doing it. But really, it helps you maintain your emotional well-being. When you are emotionally well and stable, you can support and care for others all around you. So it's not selfish. It's actually like enables you to care for everybody around you in addition to yourself. And what I think the third myth is that it leads to this like complacent attitude, this complacency. Like, oh, it's okay. Like I'll just sit on the couch and have my coffee and like we're going to do that every day. But actually what it does is it fosters growth and learning and like motivates you to improve. And that's the fierce side too. Like one of the pieces of fierce self-compassion is motivation. So
Yeah.
it actually like leads to more growth and learning because you're not beating yourself up. When you beat yourself up, you shut yourself down. When you're
Yeah.
curious about like, or when you accept, oh, I just made a mistake, or let's just take like the structure of PFC3 in one meal.
Mhm.
I'm like, even if I wasn't, say I go off my intention was to have a balanced meal
Yeah.
and I didn't.
Yeah.
Like if I go beat myself up, guess what I'm going to do for the next meal?
Yeah.
Probably not, so it's this like snowball effect.
Yeah.
It's also not a sign of weakness, which I think is another like, oh, like self-compassion. Like I'm not going to achieve my goals. Like I got to be tough. It's going to make me weak. Actually, it requires a lot of resilience and strength to face difficulties with kindness because sometimes it's easier to face them in other unkind ways that are less compassionate, less
Yeah.
self-compassionate.
Yes, yes, I love that. Yeah, you're really making me think about the what we always say, no guilt, just data. And it is like no guilt. Like have compassion for yourself and figure out why you ended up making the choice that you did
Right.
so that you can make a better choice next time. Because if you're not aware of what happened, not beating yourself up, but being
Yeah.
aware, you're never going to make that next step towards serving yourself in a different way after that. And you're really just outlining self compassion is just that, being like your own best friend that would tell you if you're doing something over and over again, girlfriend, you got to figure out why you keep putting yourself in this situation because she
Mhm.
loves you too much for you to keep doing that.
Right.
And so while it is kindness, it's also about this like no nonsense kind of,
Hmm.
nurturing in some ways that you've got to be for yourself.
Yeah, like your own best protector or
Mhm.
provider. Like, that's really what you're doing when you do that. And I think like curiosity goes a long way. Like being
Mhm.
curious about, like why did I make that decision? Like, and just kind of like if you're curious, it's really hard to be judgmental and curious at the same time.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. It's really hard to be curious and judgmental at the same time. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I think that judgment is what's constantly weighing us down. The guilt, the feeling like I'm not enough, the feeling like I can't be successful, the feeling like I can't do it perfectly, the feeling that I have to figure out how to get this right and I can't
Yeah.
is all around judgment, as opposed to what you just said. You nailed, I really think you nailed it, nailed the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head, right? If you're curious, you can't be judgmental. And I think judgment is what's weighing so much of what's weighing us down.
100%. The self-judgment, the judgment of foods, good or bad, the judgment of, you know, not doing, when this is comparison too, like not doing something the way somebody else is doing it. And
Yeah.
so, I'm going to go
Yeah.
over here, they're doing.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah. And I
Yeah.
think
So,
curiosity is the response.
so I love this. So we have to recognize that self-compassion is multifaceted, that there's a kindness. The whole thing is embedded in kindness, but almost
Mhm.
like I care too much about you for you not to show up for yourself, kind of kindness, right? And
Yeah.
not an enabling, but of an empowering. And in order to do that, you need to be self-aware at the same time. That's what I'm
Yes.
hearing, right? There's a kindness, there's a fierceness, a tenderness, a fierceness, but it's all, embodies around uh self-awareness. And I love the mama bear concept because like if this was your kid, you'd be like, get off your phone, come on,
Yeah.
you gotta move your body, let's go. But are we
Right.
doing that to ourselves? And I
Exactly.
think it's so interesting because until you were actually in the cockpit flying, until you got the turbulence, you landed your plane, you were like, that's it, I'm not flying right now. But then you
Yes.
realize I gotta get back up and fly. And I think you started really figuring out not what's in someone else's flight manual, but what's in your own flight manual and how you are going to fly your plane. And this was a big aha for you to be able to finally really show up for yourself in the way that you need to.
Yes, absolutely. So that was like like fast forward over. This was actually the third time I like quote come back, whatever that means.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
like actively engaged,
Yeah.
and it's been several months now. So it's just like it just felt easier in my mind because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I know now what I need for myself. And like, you have it all laid out. And I know all like I've learned all the stuff. I've learned the
Just
things.
got to actually fly it, right?
I just gotta fly the thing and like maybe, hit the turbulence and write the plane and like just and do that over and over.
And
And like
over.
self-compassion. If you fall down, if you have even if for a whole week, it's kind of not what you had hoped for. That's so like if you just accept that. I was just saying to a friend right now who's sick and she's like, I'm feeling so upset. I can't do all the things I'm supposed to do. And I was like, you gotta surrender and you gotta
Mm-hmm.
just like accept this is part of the human experience
Yep.
and let it go because then you get back up so much quicker.
Yep.
Whether you're sick,
Exactly.
whether you've, eaten like nothing but pizza and
Chocolate
whatever
cake.
of the cake for an entire week and like
Yep.
you feel horrible, like, okay, that's great
Yep.
data. Let's maybe
Yeah.
not do that.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't the chocolate cake that's weighing us down. It wasn't the pizza that was weighing us down. It was our own ability to have that fierce self-compassion for ourselves to say that I'm going to just love myself through this and show up for myself in a way that really says, I love you, you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
I love this. Stephanie, I love that like you've been on our podcast before and now you're on again. And being a coach is just such an amazing opportunity for all of us because you are living this for yourself and also sharing it with others. And then you get to share it with us too. So I think what's really weighing us down, obviously, it's not just one thing, it's multiple factors, which is actually the point of this whole series is to recognize if you keep going after one thing as the answer, you're going to still be weighed down. And this is one piece of the puzzle that we're trying to help you to see. And I love that you're still part of our community. And that's what it means to be with us for a lifetime. We continue to evolve and grow. And I love it. So,
Yes.
Stephanie, where can people find you to be able to see more about what you do and how you help people?
Yeah. So I think the best place right now, my website's kind of like under construction, but my Instagram profile is the best. We'll link it in the show notes, but it's just at stephanie.k.rousseau, Rousseau. People can connect with me there, DM me through there.
Love
I
it.
also have a free guide around because when I first got introduced to self-compassion, I was like, well, that seems like a great idea, but like, how do I do that in practice?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I'm used to beating myself up for 40 plus years. How am I supposed to turn it around now? Like that it's a daily practice, but I've created this free guide that has tons of super practical, simple ways for you to start to dabble in this. If like me, you were someone who like was just used to beating yourself up as the go-to response. So
Yeah.
we'll link.
Or saying, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
justifying that. So I love that. So we will link that free, I will go and get it myself because I love this. I'm super excited about it. We will link the link. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can grab it yourself, and make sure you comment on how this is helping you think about things differently. This is why I can't do like a 1 minute reel on Instagram, because it's so multifaceted, multi-layered. There's no quick, like, do this and you're all going to live a happy, perfectly healthy lifestyle life. Like, you got to tap into all the layers. And so, Steph, thank you for tapping into the layers with us. We need this. And it's one more piece of the puzzle for us to figure out what's really weighing us down. All right. You're the best. Thanks, Steph.
Thanks, Carrie.